A lot of people who end up with major depressive disorder have no idea why they feel the way they do. Some have experienced trauma or a huge stressor, but a surprising amount of them say something like, "Everything in my life is fine. I have no reason to be depressed, but I just don't feel happy anymore."
Depression doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it settles in silently through tiny, invisible habits that eat away at your joy without you even noticing. But those small, damaging patterns, they're not permanent. They can be reversed. If small habits can fuel depression, small changes can pull us out of it too. What you're about to hear might just explain everything. Ignoring the good doesn't make you strong, it makes you numb. Depression isn't just about feeling low, it's about losing your ability to feel joy. For many people, this starts as self-protection. When you've been hurt again and again, hope begins to feel dangerous. So instead of celebrating the good, you downplay it. You get out of bed and go to work, but tell yourself, "Oh, that's nothing special." Someone compliments you and you think, well, they're just being polite. You notice a beautiful sunset and dismiss it as just pollution. These tiny dismissals seem harmless, but over time, they teach your brain to filter out joy, to expect disappointment before it even arrives. Sensitive, thoughtful people often fall into this trap because they feel everything so deeply that numbing becomes their only survival tool. But by rejecting what's good, you end up feeding the very thing you're trying to avoid: emotional emptiness. What you silence today becomes the sadness you can't explain tomorrow. Being mean to yourself isn't tough love, it's emotional self-harm. Everyone slips up, everyone forgets, fails, messes something up. But the damage doesn't always come from the mistake itself. It comes from what you say to yourself afterward. That inner monologue you think is just being honest. It might be the most destructive habit you have. "I'm such an idiot. Why do I always screw things up? I'll never get it right." You repeat these lines so often, they start to feel like facts. But they're not facts. They're emotional bruises you keep punching into yourself. Most people think self-criticism will make them stronger, that if they just shame themselves enough, they'll finally change. But research shows the opposite. Harsh self-talk triggers your brain's threat response. It actually increases anxiety, decreases motivation, and makes it harder to learn from mistakes. So instead of building resilience, you're building self-doubt. Self-compassion isn't weakness. It's how you break the cycle. It's looking at your mess up and saying, "Okay, that wasn't great, but I'm still worthy. I can do better without tearing myself apart." That shift doesn't just change how you feel, it rewires your brain for long-term growth. Because when you stop fighting yourself, you finally free up the energy to heal, learn, and move forward. So ask yourself, if you wouldn't speak to a friend that way, why make yourself live with that voice every day? Blaming yourself for having emotions. You feel anxious, overwhelmed, maybe even numb. And before you've had a chance to process it, the guilt creeps in. You think, other people have it worse. I shouldn't feel this way. I have no right to be sad. And just like that, your pain becomes something you're ashamed of. But here's the truth. Emotions aren't moral. They're not good or bad. They just are. They're your mind and body trying to tell you something important. And when you guilt yourself for feeling, you shut down that signal. You silence your own internal compass. That inner voice telling you to toughen up or just get over it isn't helping. It's gaslighting you into thinking your emotional truth is invalid. And that denial, that's what keeps the pain stuck. You can't heal what you refuse to feel. Allowing your emotions without judgment, without explanation, isn't weakness. It's courage. It's saying, I don't need permission to feel what I feel. And from that place, real healing begins. Because the goal isn't to not feel sad or anxious. The goal is to feel it fully, listen to it, learn from it, and then let it move through you. So the next time you catch yourself feeling guilty for having emotions, stop and remind yourself, your feelings are not a flaw to fix. They're a message to understand. Withdrawing from life. Depression doesn't shout, it whispers. Soft, convincing lies like, "You're a burden. They won't notice if you're gone. Just stay home, it's easier that way." So you cancel plans. You leave messages on read, you stop replying, stop reaching out, and quietly retreat into yourself. It feels safer, quieter, less painful, but with every step away, something inside you gets dimmer. The silence grows louder, the loneliness becomes suffocating, and soon you start to believe the lie that you're better off alone. But here's the hard truth: isolation doesn't protect you, it depletes you. Humans are wired for connection, not constant performance. You don't need to show up with a smile or have it all figured out. You just need to show up. Because connection doesn't fix everything, but it reminds you that you exist outside of your pain, that someone cares, that you're still part of something bigger than the thoughts in your head. Even the smallest interaction, a message, a walk with a friend, a brief phone call, can anchor you to reality when your mind wants to drift away. Depression wants you to disappear. Connection brings you back to life. Don't wait to feel better before reaching out. Reaching out is often what makes you feel better. Numbing behaviors. When life feels heavy, it's almost instinctual to run, not with your feet, but with your focus. You reach for your phone. Scroll endlessly. Open the fridge, not because you're hungry, but because you're numb. Binge watch episode after episode, not for the entertainment, but to escape your own thoughts. And maybe for a while it works. The noise drowns out the ache. The screen fills the silence. But deep down, you're not really resting. You're avoiding. You're not weak for doing this. You're not lazy. You're trying to survive with the only tools you have. But here's the catch. What you avoid doesn't vanish. It piles up. Emotional pain doesn't dissolve with distraction. It waits. It builds in the quiet moments, in the pit of your stomach, in that sudden wave of sadness that hits for no reason. Distractions give temporary relief. But healing begins when you pause and ask, what am I really running from? Sitting with your pain doesn't mean wallowing in it. It means acknowledging it, giving it a name, a voice, a place to be seen. That's where clarity comes in. That's when the fog starts to lift, because when you stop numbing, you start feeling. And when you start feeling, you finally begin to process. Discomfort is a doorway. And though it's easier to scroll past it, the real freedom comes when you walk through it. Slowly, gently, one honest breath at a time. Rumination. Your mind replays the scene like a broken record. That one conversation where you said too much. That one mistake you can't undo. That one moment that still makes your stomach drop every time it surfaces. You analyze it, dissect it, rewind and replay it, thinking maybe, just maybe, you'll finally figure out what you should have done differently. You call it reflection, but what you're really doing is spiraling. This is the trap of rumination. It feels productive, like you're solving a problem, but you're not moving. You're just circling the same emotional track, getting more exhausted with every lap. Overthinking doesn't bring closure. It keeps the wound open. It convinces you that if you keep thinking long enough, you'll change what already happened, but you won't. And that's not a failure, that's being human. You don't need to fix the past. You need to release your grip on it. Not by pretending it didn't matter, but by deciding it doesn't get to own your future. The goal isn't to forget, it's to stop feeding it. Every time you return to the moment that broke you, ask yourself, is this helping me heal or just keeping me stuck? The present is the only place you can rewrite the story. It's where growth lives. It's where new choices get made. Let the past inform you, not imprison you. because as long as you're living in yesterday, you're robbing yourself of the peace that only today can give. Forgetting basic self-care isn't laziness, it's a warning signal. When you're feeling low, even the smallest tasks feel like mountains. Brushing your teeth, making a meal, getting out of bed. It all feels pointless, heavy, and overwhelming. So you skip meals, sleep at random hours, stop moving your body. And you tell yourself it's fine, because what difference would it make anyway? But here's the thing, those basic habits. They're not just routine, they're regulation. They're how your body and brain stay connected, grounded, and balanced. When you neglect them, even unintentionally, it starts a quiet spiral. Poor sleep increases anxiety. Skipping meals messes with mood. Sitting inside all day traps you in your thoughts. Suddenly, what was emotional becomes physical, and it gets harder to tell where it all began. Self-care isn't about spa days or routines that look good on Instagram. It's about doing the boring, invisible things that quietly hold you together. Drinking water, getting sunlight, sleeping enough to think clearly. These aren't chores, they're medicine. Not instant fixes, but daily acts of resistance against despair. You don't have to do it all at once. Just pick one thing. One small act that tells your brain, I'm still here, I still matter. Waiting for motivation. Depression is a master of delay. It convinces you that you need to feel better before you do better. I'll clean my room when I'm less tired. I'll call a friend when I'm in a better mood. I'll start exercising when I feel motivated. But that feeling, it rarely shows up on its own. You wait days, weeks, sometimes months, and nothing changes because nothing moved. Motivation isn't a starting point, it's a result. It's what shows up after you begin. That first step, however awkward, reluctant, or small, is the spark. You go for a 5-minute walk and suddenly your lungs feel lighter. You respond to one message and suddenly you don't feel as alone. You wash a dish and suddenly your space doesn't feel as suffocating. Waiting to feel ready is like sitting in a parked car, hoping it'll start moving without the key. Action is the key, always, not because you're faking it, but because your nervous system needs evidence that forward is still possible, that life is still reachable, that you are still reachable. So don't wait for the mood, create it with movement, with motion, with the tiniest act that whispers, I'm not giving up on me today. That's where momentum is born, not in readiness, but in rebellion against stagnation. Emotional reasoning, feelings are powerful, so powerful that they can convince you of things that simply aren't true. You feel hopeless, so you think you are hopeless. You feel like a failure, so you believe you must be one. That's the trap, when emotion starts masquerading as evidence. Depression doesn't just make you sad, it distorts your perception. It takes a passing thought and paints it as your entire identity. Emotions are real, but they're not always accurate. They're signals, not definitions. Just because you feel worthless doesn't mean you have no worth. Just because you feel broken doesn't mean you can't heal. Thoughts fueled by pain tend to speak in absolutes. Always, never, no one, nothing. They scream finality in moments that are only temporary. You are allowed to feel everything, deeply, painfully, honestly. But feeling something and believing it as a permanent truth are two different things. You can hold space for emotion without letting it take the wheel. You can say, I feel lost right now, instead of, I am lost forever. Separating who you are from what you feel. This is where your power begins. In learning to witness your emotions like weather, intense, unpredictable, but always moving through. When you remember that feelings are visitors, not verdicts, You stop letting depression write your story. You start writing it back, one grounded truth at a time. All or nothing thinking. If I can't do it perfectly, why bother? If I didn't succeed completely, then I've failed completely. Sound familiar? That's all or nothing thinking. And it's one of the most dangerous mental traps we fall into. It paints life in black and white with no room for grey, no room for effort, no room for being human. This kind of thinking doesn't motivate you, it paralyzes you, because if every outcome has to be perfect to count, then why try at all? Miss one workout and suddenly the whole fitness journey feels ruined. Have one awkward conversation and suddenly you're terrible at relationships. Slip up once and suddenly you're a complete failure. See the pattern? You're setting standards no one can live up to, not even you. But here's the truth, life is built in the in-between. In the messy, imperfect attempts. In the progress that's barely noticeable at first, but stacks up over time. Growth doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence, from doing something badly and showing up again anyway. Every time you fight the urge to quit because it isn't perfect, you reclaim your power. You learn to say, this doesn't have to be flawless to be worth it. That mindset shift is everything, because perfectionism doesn't lead to greatness. It leads to burnout, shame, and stagnation. But embracing the grey, that leads to freedom. That leads to change. And that's where real life begins. Victim mindset and the trap of nothing will ever change. When your relationship falls apart, when everything feels like it's slipping, what's the first thing your mind says? For many, it's not, I'll figure this out. It's, why does this always happen to me? That's the beginning of a victim mindset. And while the pain behind it is real, the mindset itself quietly poisons your ability to grow. It convinces you that your circumstances are fixed, that your story is already written, and that your only role is to endure it. But let's get one thing clear. There's a difference between being a victim and living in a victim mindset. The first acknowledges that something painful happened to you. The second insists that you have no power from that point forward. You'll know you're stuck in it when every challenge is met with, I can't because, rather than, I'll try, even if it's hard. Then there's its partner in crime, the fixed mindset. It whispers things like, this is just who I am, or I'll never change. Depression loves this. It thrives in certainty, in hopelessness, in mental stillness. But growth mindset? That's rebellion. That's the part of you that says, I haven't figured this out yet, but maybe I can. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about reclaiming possibility. The moment you shift from I'm stuck to I'm still learning is the moment you crack open the door to change. And sometimes that shift is the most powerful thing you'll ever do. These habits can be unlearned. Ignoring the good, criticizing yourself, isolating, numbing, overthinking don't seem like much when they stand alone. But when they pile up, they become unbearable. Like invisible bricks in a backpack you carry every single day. You don't even realize the weight at first. You just know you're tired, unmotivated, overwhelmed. And eventually, you start to think you are the problem when really, it's the burden you've been taught to normalize. That weight is not permanent. These habits are not who you are. They're patterns. And patterns can be broken, not with a dramatic transformation, not by fixing your entire life overnight, but by choosing one small thing. Today, maybe you accept a compliment instead of deflecting it. Tomorrow, you might open the window and breathe in some fresh air. Next week, you send a message to a friend even if you feel awkward. Every small decision is a brick removed, a little more lightness, a little more space to breathe. The change won't be loud at first, but it will be real. You don't need to climb a mountain. You just need to stop adding stones to your own pocket. Healing begins not with pressure, but with permission. Permission to try, to fail, to rest, to try again. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about slowly remembering who you were before the weight buried you, one gentle shift at a time. You don't have to fix everything today. You just have to notice just one habit, one reflex, one voice in your head that no longer deserves the power it's been given, because awareness is the first crack in the wall, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's where real change begins, not in some perfect version of you, but in the imperfect, present version who chooses to begin anyway. So which one of these habits hit you the hardest? Was it emotional reasoning, withdrawing, self-punishment? Leave a comment below with the one word that stayed with you. Naming it is how you take the first step away from it. And if this video spoke to something you've been silently carrying, I invite you to watch the next one on your screen. It dives even deeper into rebuilding your mindset from the inside out. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about finally understanding why you felt this way for so long. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of Mosaic Mind. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're becoming, and becoming takes time.